Hello, 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 everybody. We want to thank you for tuning in. This is Believe, where we look to inspire, influence, and impact our viewing and listening audience. We are also on IG Live. And today I have with me, returning as my guest this fourth Sunday, Miss Crystal Glenn. Crystal, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me again, sir.
At Smart Video Girl on Instagram, she is a podcast host, speaker,
Yep,
and authenticity coach.
that's right.
Today, our topic simply is what is Black Power? Last week, we talked about Black Love is Black Power in celebration of Black History Month. On the other side of the break, Crystal and I are going to talk about what Black Power means to us. When you hear that word or term, what is Black Power? What does it mean to you? So tune in, check us out after the break.
Hello, my name is Tania McQueen. I'm the Residential Services Manager for Prestige Community Resources. What our new facilities are respite centers. We're opening 2 in the city right now. Hopefully we'll expand to more. But respite centers are a place where people can come and get a little additional support with their mental health. Our one on Eastern Avenue is for men, and our one on Minnesota Avenue is for women. Our facilities are for all DC residents, especially focusing in on those in Ward 7 and 8. So they're really nice, and I'm excited for consumers to actually see them. What are the services that we're going to provide? Therapy, case management, medication management, all provided by professional staff, a licensed nurse practitioner, psychiatrists, sociologists, social workers, and then our paraprofessionals, our case managers. It's just a place where you can come and get the supports that you need to work on your personal goals, as well as to get your mental health straight. Simple, single adult, 18 years of age or older, a DC resident. You need to have insurance, but if you don't have it, it's okay. Still come, we'll work on getting you insurance. Have to have a negative COVID test, a negative TB test, and be willing to work on your mental health. For more information about respite services, you can contact us at 202-796-5000 or hit us up on our website at www.prestigecommunityresources.org.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you again, everybody who's tuning in, who's hanging in with us. This is Believe. My name is Cortland Jones, author, retired educator, and entrepreneur. And again, I have with me as my guest this fourth Sunday. She was also with me third Sunday,
That's right.
Miss Crystal Glenn,
Mm-hmm.
at Smart Video Girl on Instagram. Crystal, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me again.
We've been talking about and celebrating Black History Month with discussions related to the subject Black Love is Black Power, and today specifically Black Power. So I want to get started right away so we can get in as much as we can.
30 minutes goes quick.
It does go fast. So when you hear Black Power, what comes to your mind when you hear the term Black Power?
When I hear Black Power, I hear Wakanda Forever. I'm still stuck on that. I'm still stuck on that. But honestly, I do see it's a stillness. Like Black Power is like a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's something that is powerful yet silent.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But it can come with a wrath.
No, I love that.
Yeah, that's what I think about. Mm-hmm.
Because my immediate thought, obviously, is the Black Panthers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, then I think about James Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I'm black and I'm proud. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud.
Mm-hmm.
But then I began to think about, as we're going to discuss today, impact.
Mm-hmm.
The many different ways in which Black power is represented within the community
Mm-hmm.
of African Americans, its culture, and its history. As I had shared in my promo on social media, I believe, and I'm sure others would agree with this sentiment, that Black power too often has a negative connotation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's this stigma and stereotype to both Black and power. especially when it's put together. And so today I wanted to join with you in a dialogue to help people think differently, kind of evolve or expand their understanding. And so we're gonna play a word association game, and I'm gonna throw a few words at you, and I just want you to be able to share, and as I will share also, what your thoughts are on these words associated with Black Power. The first one being faith.
Okay. So before we do that, I
Uh
just
huh.
want to piggyback real quick off of what you
Sure.
were saying about
Sure.
the connotation of putting black and power together, and how it gets labeled
Yeah.
um, in a certain way. And that's why it's important that we have these conversations and that we create the narrative. We tell the story and we create the narrative
I
so
agree.
that we can fully understand what that means. The black power is, again, a powerful thing. It's nothing to be afraid of,
Mm-hmm.
but it is very powerful.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. So when I think about faith in terms of black power, I do think about our ancestors and their ability to withstand
Mm-hmm.
the discrimination
Mm-hmm.
and the enslavement
Mm-hmm.
and the hatred that they have endured in this country. Because that is a definitely an act of faith that there's someone or something greater than there's something beyond this moment. And so I see that when I think about faith and black power, that's what I think about.
I love that because my thought had to do with the role of the black church during
Mhm.
the civil rights movement
Mhm.
and the hub they were in the community that inspired and influenced a lot of the movement associated with the civil rights movement of the 1960s. But like you mentioned, throughout our history,
Mhm.
faith has played a huge role in
Mhm.
our ability to display not only resilience,
Mhm.
but that audacity
Mhm.
to make sure that we saw ourselves as valuable and significant and to withstand the oppression and the degradation. Another thing that comes to my mind, I go back to what we talked about last week, Unbreakable, and the song that was created by Alicia Keys, because she talked about in that song these different people that represented an example
Mhm.
for us to follow. And in the song, there was this refrain of "We're living our dreams," and she was basically saying, based on the people that we're looking at, we emulate them so that we can live our dreams as well. And there's a
Mhm.
verse in the Bible that says, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let's throw off those things that hinder, the sin that so easily entangles, and run with perseverance the race marked out for us. So I see that as faith as well. We're being inspired by the examples before us. And you've mentioned them: Martin, Malcolm,
Mhm.
Marcus, the Black
Harriet
Panthers,
Rosa. Mm.
Harriet, all of these people who before us have now given us an example by which we can be inspired by faith to achieve as well.
Okay.
So, next word, advocacy. When you hear advocacy in association with Black Power, what comes to mind?
Um, Black Panthers.
Hmm.
Martin. These people were advocates, especially the Panthers. They
Hmm.
were advocates and still are today.
Hmm.
Okay, because let's be clear, they are still here. I know a few myself. Um, they are advocates for the black community,
Hmm.
strong advocates.
Hmm.
They believe in black power. They understand black power, and they are boisterous with their advocacy of making sure that blacks have power and understand their power. So I think of Black Panthers.
I love that because, again, even the Black Panthers, there is a negative connotation associated with them, even on the subject of Black Power. But when
Mm-hmm.
you begin to understand their whole reason
Mm-hmm.
for why they chose to exist, it really has to do with love. Whether we agree with everything associated with them, it doesn't change the fact that love was the motivation
Right.
for why they did what they did as it related to community. We were underserved, underprivileged.
Undereducated, a whole bunch of things. So yeah, it was definitely rooted in love, love for their community, love for Black people. That's what it was rooted in.
Yeah.
I agree. It
So
was not It was not the hatred, and that's what a lot of times when they associate, going back to that association. So it was not more. It wasn't about how they felt about other people, the oppressor, but it was more about what they wanted for their community.
I also think of Martin Luther King. I think of
Mhm.
Malcolm X. I think of the time when I was growing up, watching TV. The mind is a terrible thing to waste. The United Negro College Fund. And so the advocacy for education and going to college, I remember that. I remember every year the life of Dr. King being on TV, the made for TV movie.
Mhm.
And his life pretty much just kind of reinforced how we should invest ourselves on behalf of the unheard.
Mhm.
He has this quote about riot is the voice of the unheard,
Mhm.
and so it becomes a duty or responsibility for those of us who have experienced some measure of success to advocate on behalf of those who have not benefited
Right.
from life's graces. And I think about the quote, "We rise by lifting others." When I think about advocacy,
Yes.
that's what comes
Yes.
to my mind.
Yes. Absolutely.
So here's my next word, which is kind of similar to advocacy, but there is a difference. Activism. When you hear the word activism on the subject of Black Power, what comes to mind?
Um, what comes to mind really is oh, that one. That one is so difficult for me. Not really difficult, but there's so many things that come to mind. But that one for me deals more with, our rights to vote.
Hmm.
I'm thinking of people who were active in the pursuit of making sure that we have certain rights. Um, and then using their power, using that, being active in the pursuit and not being passive. So activism, being a force
Hmm.
within Black Power, being active, being involved, being at the table, being involved. Mhm.
I love what you said because the way I would define the difference between advocacy and activism, advocacy is what I would do on your behalf.
Mhm.
As one being unheard, using you as an example, advocacy is what I would do for you. Activism is me getting you involved in making sure that your needs are met if you
Mhm.
are a part of that group that's underserved. And
Mhm.
so activism is uniting others in the cause on
Mhm.
behalf of those who are underprivileged. And for me, I love the fact that you use the voting rights
Mhm.
as part of that. When I think about today, it's continuing to reinforce that we should play an active role in the use of our voice
Yes.
through voting
Yes.
because we have now that right and we need to make sure that we are actively involved in the use of our voice as it relates to politics.
I agree.
So the last one, oh, wait a minute. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen.
Mhm.
Culture. When you hear culture, what comes to mind when you hear culture on in relation to Black Power?
Well, I think about hip hop. You know, I think about the hip hop movement. That is a culture in itself, and it was a that's a very powerful. I think about music,
Hmm.
in itself, but definitely hip hop is for like my generation. Being culture, we used our music in order to. We use our culture in order to display and exhibit and exemplify and share Black Power, our influence. And, culture is influential, and that Black Power, and that's like, Black culture is very influential. That's a power force in itself. So I say hip hop because, that hip hop is all across the world,
Yes.
everywhere.
Yes.
And that's Black Power.
I love what you shared because I think of art in terms of culture. I think of the Harlem Renaissance. At a time between slavery and the civil rights movement, it's the most undiscussed
Mm-hmm.
time period in American history where blacks decided to control the narrative of what it meant to be black in America, which is kind of what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
It's a celebrated time in American history. A lot of the people that we actually celebrate come from that time period, but we never really talk about the time period of the Harlem Renaissance, music being a part of that movement, but also the arts, dance, visual art, performing arts. So
Mm.
I love that you shared that. So far, we've talked about faith, advocacy, activism, and culture, which I definitely appreciate you sharing your thoughts on
Mm-hmm.
what those terms mean to you as it relates to Black Power. On the other side of the break, we're going to continue this conversation of our need to control the narrative of what Black Power means to us
Mm-hmm.
and dispel this negative connotation associated with it. So I'm looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are on the other side of the break. And I'm actually going to let you open by talking about a documentary project you have, Dreams of a Vision, at least telling us your thoughts about it.
Okay, I will.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. We hope that you tune in for the second half of this talk. What is Black Power? On the other side of the break, we're going to continue to create this narrative.
Key that you mind your mental health.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing this week?
Hi.
Use the 5 keys to mental
Well, this week
movement.
has been a really monumental week for me. I realized that I was not being myself.
Reaching out.
Be positive attitude person self, like you guys know me to be. I was
Staying
listening to
upbeat.
teaching and give back to that happy, cheery self you guys of me.
This week's been kind of
Being
stressful with,
creative.
all of the workload that we have on online learning. So I've been trying to use different platforms and different websites to help ease my mind and ease my stress.
And what about you, Marjorie?
Well, you guys know me. I just love to work with others and serve them.
Serving others.
Realize that when I serve others, my mind is off of myself.
That's right. And don't forget, self-care is key.
Self-care.
All right. So see you guys next week.
Right.
Bye.
Your mind matters.
We appreciate you being here with us. I have had this enjoyable dialogue with Miss Crystal Glenn at Smart Video Girl on Instagram.
Yes, follow me.
And we have had the opportunity to talk about faith, advocacy, activism, and culture on the subject of what is Black Power.
Yes.
Before we continue our dialogue about this narrative,
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for you to share how you are contributing to controlling the narrative of Black history and keeping us informed about Black history after February with your documentary project, Dreams of a Vision.
Yes, so thank you very much. I am working on a documentary. It's in the planning phase. It's called Dreams of a Vision. And really, my hope with this, my inspiration for this project is to be able to unite generations, also to facilitate conversation between generations using media as a platform. You know, that is definitely where we are today. And then also to inspire people when you're talking about activism to take personal accountability for their role in the community and to get involved. So, you know, we had Martin who had a dream, you know, and then we had this realization when we saw Barack Obama become the president. And so it was almost like a vision realized. But now we have to like continue that. Like, where do we go from here? And really, it is my hope, based on the mentorship of my mentor, Dr. Dula, to be able to continue the conversation of Black history on a regular basis, make it part of who we are and how we have conversations amongst ourselves.
I love that because this show, the last 2 weeks, kind of fosters that, though it is Black History Month, and I know there's talk about doing something related to that in the month of May, so we're going to continue to talk about that as each month goes by. But continuing this conversation today about what comes to mind when we hear certain words as it relates to Black Power,
Mm-hmm.
the next word is education.
HBCU. Woo. I think I'm a Hampton University graduate, HBCU, okay, W.E.B. Du Bois. So when I think about education, I think about our HBCUs. I think about the role that they play in them not just being educational institutes, but really educating us on the culture. If you've grown up in mixed populations and things of that sort, going to a HBCU really gives you an education on Black culture, no matter where you go. You know, it really does at some level. And so when I think about that, I think about our HBCUs.
I love that. It makes me think about literacy.
Okay.
And when I saw Dr. Ben Carson's movie, Gifted Hands, for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
it was enlightening, it was inspiring to see the impact of literacy on this young child and how it changed the trajectory of his life to become the first brain surgeon
Mm-hmm.
who performed a successful separation of conjoined twins, because that's what he's most noted for. But then also Frederick Douglass, who once he learned to read, elevated to the point where he had the ear of the president.
Mm-hmm.
So the impact of literacy and education on our people over time, and you mentioned
Yeah.
Barack Obama being the first president of the United States. So
Yeah.
we definitely have come a long way. Obviously, there's still progress that needs to be made
Mm-hmm.
in our communities, but we definitely have come a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And the next word being community, what comes to mind when you hear the word community?
When I think about the word community, you, I think of I think of love. That's what comes to mind. I also, well, we're talking about Black Power. I think about that as glue. The community is the glue for the for our culture, for Black people. That's how I see it. That is part of our power, and that was part of, in my opinion, the reason why some elements of integration were detrimental to us, because it loosened the glue that we had in community. So when we were together, when we were segregated, there was this very much an element of togetherness that led to the power to be able to do things, to build businesses, like, because we had these things, so it wasn't as though we came from nothing. We need to understand that, and that's part of understanding your history. So part of our glue is community.
And I love that because immediately I thought of Black Wall Street, a time period in history where we did have communities that were thriving and successful, much like they talk about Atlanta today and Prince George's County. Obviously, it's not like that all over the United States, but there are these pockets
Right.
within the nation of our country where that consolidated area of blacks, like Washington, D.C. at one time,
Mm-hmm.
was able to thrive.
Yes.
And obviously, oppression and white supremacy did not want to see that occur.
Yeah.
But the value of community in that, in what I'm hearing you say, I'm hearing the value of unity and uprising,
Mm-hmm.
being able to have that collective voice. Whereas when we're kind of separated from each other, our focus is different, our interests are different because we're on different levels of success and focus and where we're trying to go and get to. So.
Right. When you think about places like Tulsa, Tulsa, Oklahoma, they were intentional in breaking down these communities because they exhibited Black power.
hmm So to me, just before we get to the next word, Black Power to me represents so many things. I know it's not just the Black Panthers, although they definitely are the first people that I would think of, the first group I would think of when I think about Black Power. But to me, Black Power is so much more than one person or group or organization, and we're just kind of covering some of those things
Yes.
now. So resilience, as it relates to the subject of Black Power, what comes to mind when you hear resilience?
Resilience. It's in our DNA. I say it's in the DNA. again, it's part of the fabric of who we are here in America. You know, resiliency has gotten us the first black president. Our first, so many things like whatever the ability to break through so many barriers, the ability to not let things stop us, and to say that no was not going to be the final answer. I just think about the strides that we have made um, in this country as an example of resilience and Black power.
Yeah, that takes me back to our first subject, which was faith,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
verse Hebrews 12. Throw off what hinders and what entangles, and run with perseverance. Just never give up,
Mm-hmm.
because perseverance just simply means to continue steadily without giving up. And so, I do believe our people represent a heritage, history, and legacy lineage of resilience. There are obviously negative things that are always associated with our culture and our community, our history, but there are so many more wonderful things that even come out of that degradation and that oppression. And so just learning how to not stop at slavery when we think about,
Our history.
or the civil rights era as it relates to the harm and the hurt, but to also consider, like you said, the Voting Rights Act, because we were persistent, resilient. We won those things that we technically should have just received, but we made sure we didn't give up.
Yeah. And we're definitely in a new age of that. Like I think there's a new wave of resilience that's coming in with this new generation, because now the barriers and the difficulties look different. The obstacles look different. And that's why we have to do this conversation of Black history, Black culture, understanding who we are on a consistent basis. So that is in itself is resilience.
So with that in mind, our last word for today is excellence. When you hear excellence as it relates to Black power, what comes to mind?
I think about when I think about Black excellence, I think about where we are right now, like kind of what I'm alluding to, being able to distribute. I mean, being able to what was I trying to say? To show up in a way that shows the strength, that shows that regardless of whatever, or regardless of whatever you put in front of me, similar to resilience, but more of a I know who I am and I understand who I am, and I'm proud of who I am, and that in itself is black excellence. It's not really a status, but more so, again, knowing is one of my favorite words. So more of a knowing of who you are, and that in itself exemplifies Black excellence.
I'm hearing display and demonstrate
There you go.
strength of character. I think of Barack and Michelle Obama. They create for us an example of excellence to the point where we became president of the United States and the first lady. And even in how they handled the pushback, them being in office, they handled that time period with excellence. And so I hope everybody who joined us today had
It's over.
just like that. We got less than a minute. I
You
hope
need-
everybody enjoyed today's talk. Crystal, thank you. I did. I enjoyed this
It was great. I love it.
word association game. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclusion of our celebration of Black history on Believe, our live studio broadcast where we look to inspire, influence, and impact. Let's all look at how we can, moving forward, continue to celebrate Black history after February. Take care and God bless. See you again in March.